we would be able to get in the black and have a fund going forward. Did you by chance go and review cities like Salem and Concord and Portsmouth, some that's related to us, and compare it what they charge and what their funds are?
Yeah, as we reported out at the first meeting, we did, we've actually met, we've actually gone to their towns and met with the divisions, looked at their parking, their parking issues, and they all fight with the same issues, is keeping those downtown spaces moving and getting people to park in the outside lots. We are right now, from what I have researched on the East Coast, which is the Northeast Coast, we are the cheapest, least expensive to park. That doesn't necessarily mean we have to match up with what they do. We do what we have to do here to match what our needs are and our expenses and revenues are. But the typical, the average right now, or in most cases, it's 75 cents in the premium spots on street, which they do mainly 2-hour meters, and the long-term lots are 50 cents.
Per hour, right?
Per hour. And there are 3 towns, or cities and towns within the state of New Hampshire, Manchester being one that you probably saw in the paper recently, that are starting to increase their rates again, to increase to another level.
Do you know offhand what Brattleboro charges?
Brattleboro is now 75 and 50. Some of their lots are 60 cents an hour.
But on street, Main Street is
75 cents.
an hour.
Yes.
Council Clark?
Okay, now, we just recently had a meeting with downtown merchants, among the city staff and downtown merchants, and they talked about, I guess, we want to promote turnover, and we want to promote people to move and park into the long-term areas and use the, just the downtown areas just for short stops. So, attachment C here would seem to make a lot of sense, you know, because attachment B would raise long-term, you know, for an 8-hour day from $1.60 to $4, from $8 a week to $20 a week for an average employee and stuff like that. And when you extrapolate that into the numbers throughout the year, it seems like it would provide enough money, and it seems like the curve is going up as we go past. I mean, it doesn't give us as much as B does, but it seems like C would work. Is that true, or is that something that these unforecasted events is not going to work?
Well, as we said, we don't really know what the cost of that's going to be for the unscheduled repair of the Wall Street deck. We do know that it's 17 years old. We know that the City Hall deck is receiving some maintenance again this year for sandblasting and painting. That is in the capital program. And we have a rehabilitation coming up of the Commercial Street lot, which is in the CIP program currently. But any unscheduled repairs or any other projects, any extra beautification in the areas of the downtown, none of that is included in that. So you would see a little bit of a decrease depending on what those repairs would be in the actual fund balance.
There seems to be a steady increase going into the future up through FY20.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, unless we have catastrophic problems, it seems like it's an option that's workable. And you know, it would give us extra revenue and extra turnover for downtown in the short-term parking, and gives, you know, some relief and incentive to people to park in the long-term areas as well, and still give us enough reserves so that we might be able to have the fund in a good place.
It definitely prolongs the situation. It does give us a fund balance that is slower to decrease depending on what occurs. We just have to continually monitor the situation and make sure that we still continue that fund balance. And that's one of the reasons why we put it in here is the way we did, so that if it was approved, we could actually continue to increase those unless we have to come back to the council because of some issue that crops up that takes some of that fund balance away.
Did I hear something about a plan to collect the bad debts, the scofflaws?
That's something that we're researching right now, Mr. Chair, and basically prior to moving out of the police department, we used what's called a spots terminal. And because we use that terminal, the agreement with the state police and the authority, which is Keene Police Department, you're not able to utilize that information to be able to collect. So you go to a collection agency, you can't take their information, let a third person or a third party be able to utilize that information. However, since we moved to this location, we no longer use Spots Terminal. We are currently have an agreement with the State of New Hampshire DOT, or Department of Motor Vehicles, excuse me. And because we are purchasing the information, we pay 10 cents a transaction to purchase that information. We do have the ability to be able to hire a collection agency on to go after some of those funds.
The state is charging us 10 cents per call?
Actually, the way the law reads, that if you don't purchase the information, you cannot use it for a
No, that's
collection
fine.
agency.
It just, it'd be very creative on the part of the state DOT to come up with a little funding source there.
It's actually, it's a pretty good system for divisions to be able to utilize.
Yeah, sounds good, yeah.
I know we want turnover, and one of the things I've seen a number of times, especially during the summer when people are coming from out of state, and they find a parking spot, they put their money in, they get a ticket, and they go, who cares? By the time the person goes all the way around, I haven't gone through the hassle, and basically it's gonna cost me $1 or $2 anyway, but I get an extra couple hours out of it. And in some cases, when we want the big turnover with customers in the summer, our prices, our fines are so low compared to where they're coming from. It's kind of like going to some places where trucks park all day and get a couple of tickets because it's cheaper to pay the tickets instead of having to go look for different parking spots.
Yeah, the compliance violations are basically there to deter someone from wanting to get a ticket. And I've heard the same comments from people who have been in town, and when they hear that it's $5, it's like, oh, okay. But that's not really what we're in business for, is to do tickets. It's more of the compliance to make sure that things are doing what they're supposed to be doing. They're not parking in reserved spaces, they're not parking in emergency lanes. And again, we get the turnover where we want to get the turnover for the downtown.
When I see an out-of-town or out-of-state person that's getting a ticket and they're looking at $5 and, no, it's a half a, gee, really? I said, thank you for making a contribution. And, you know, that kind of puts a little smile on their face, because that really is what it is also. Councilor Chadbourne, you have something?
About that, Councilor Chadbourne, about the $5 ticket, I was getting my hair done the other day, and the woman who owns the place was complaining because after the $5 ticket, and she didn't move her car, she got a $20 ticket in the same day. So it's not like it's just another $5 ticket, and it's not like you don't get another ticket that's a lot heftier. So I think the way the conversation was going kind of skews the reality that it's a little heavier fine than people might think. Thanks.
If you're over the 2-hour limit, it jumps to $20?
No. What Councilor Chadbourne's referring to is that if you receive a violation because you are over the time limit or you park there longer than 2 hours, you will receive a ticket, and after another 2 hours, you can receive a more expensive ticket based on the fact that you didn't move your vehicle.
So that person's been there 4 hours.
Overfull, that's correct.
Councilor Duffy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. James Duffy, Ward 4 City Council. If I may through you to Mr. Lamoureaux. You mentioned that you had meetings with downtown merchants this week. I read the Sentinel editorial. But do you have getting back to the long-term lots and the impact on downtown workers, I'm assuming they basically use commercial, the Gilboa Ave lot, which I consider the one closer to St. James Church, I guess that's Gilboa lot, and Wells Street. Do we have any idea, based on your conversations with them, how many workers are actually being affected, or?
Because we didn't have a large group there, it's difficult to be able to answer that question as to how many are without parking. But we did have a conversation with those who were there, one being a fairly large employer in the downtown area of, I think, approximately 48 employees. And they've been parking over at the Gilboa East lot. One of the things that we explained to them is the commercial street lot is the most underutilized lot that we have, so we're trying to educate people to use those 2 parking lots, and we also inform them that the Wall Street upper deck has 56 spaces. We have been approached to see if we can use some of those for rental spaces, so we're in the process of reviewing that now as to whether we want to take up some of those spaces for those rentals. Some of the complaints have not been as much of they can't find a parking place to park long-term. More of the issue is that when they walk in the early morning to their location of business, especially in the wintertime, sometimes the sidewalks are a little bit icy and those types of things. The Public Works Department, I did speak with Billy Byrne and Duncan Watson, who again is in charge of the highway portion of this and doing the snow plowing. And we're gonna review over this summer, how things are actually done, just to see if we can prioritize different areas. For instance, the Summer Street area, as you heard this evening, Roxbury Street area, where you get a buildup of snow, and if it doesn't get taken away from that sidewalk, then it actually builds up to ice, and it's very difficult to park. So, they do a great job with what they do. It's just, I think, looking at it to make sure that we're doing the areas that we can do.
And this winter was really.
It was a tough winter.
I have a follow-up question, if I may. Thanks. Well, according to proposal B and, attachment B and attachment C, by 2017, comparing B to C, there would be if C were the course taken, there would be $265,640 less. And I know you mentioned that the commercial street lot is scheduled for fiscal year 2017. I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but is that, do you have a ballpark figure? I should know, but I didn't bring it tonight in my head. How much that costs, and also have a follow-up about Gilboa Ave.
You're talking about the capital improvement program? For
Yeah.
the commercial lot? Look, the commercial lot is actually scheduled for FY15.
Okay.
I believe it's on. We have that. Yeah.
Get 99,000, and that's commercial street.